Guys, I'm back with another video, and today we're going to discuss the big issue of BTS and whether they are going to have to serve in the military for a little under 2 years. So, as you guys all know by now, in South Korea, every able-bodied male between the ages of 18 and 29 are required to serve a little under 2 years in the armed forces, whether it's the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, or whatever branch you want to choose. Most Korean men who aren't celebrities, they tend to go when they're around 2021. What they do is usually they go to 1 year of college, a year or two of college, and then they put their studies on hold, and then they enlist, and then they come back and then finish the rest of their studies when they're like in their mid to late 20s. The thing is, when it comes to celebrities, especially successful K-pop idols, they tend to delay the enlistment until their late 20s because they want to spend their early 20s making as much money as they can, building a fan base, building a product, building an image. So by the time they go to the military and come back, they have something to come back to just because, the industry is so cutthroat and competitive. For a lot of actors, it's the same way, but actually, with acting, there are a lot of actors who don't find success in their early 20s and they go to the military first, and they come out of the military in their mid 20s, and then they spend the rest of that time trying to build up their brand. So it's a little more flexible for them, whereas I think most idols tend to delay it until their late 20s. Now, in terms of BTS, right, there's 7 members. Oldest member is Jin, who I believe is around 29, 28, and he's expected to go enlist, I think, in later this year or early next year. People are asking, Albert, do you really think they're all going to go? Yes, I think at this point, all 7 of them are going to go to the military, and I'll explain why. So, there has been whispers, especially in the National Assembly, which is our version of Congress, or the House of Representatives or the Senate, whatever you call it. A few lawmakers have proposed bills that would give the BTS members a military exemption because of the economic and cultural contributions that they've given to South Korea. They bring in so much money for the South Korean economy. So many tourists come to the country to visit because of them. They've really helped kind of spread the popularity of Korean culture, what we call Hallyu, across the world. And they're a big deal. So there are some people who have been calling for this proposal. The reason why I don't think it's going to work is, one, I think there's not enough public consensus behind this movement. In Korea, the concept or the idea of going to the military service is really important and sensitive. Males here are not considered almost real men if they don't serve in the military and protect their country. It's seen as a rite of passage. I myself am an American citizen, so I haven't had to serve in the military, and I've heard this a lot from people at Korean companies, especially from my male colleagues. They say things like to me, 아, 그래서 군대 안 갔겠네, which literally translate to, oh, so you didn't go to the military. But it's a bit of a condescending tone where they say, oh, you didn't go to the military, which means maybe we won't be able to communicate properly, or you won't be used to taking orders from your superiors. Maybe you're not as well disciplined as some of the other kids who did go to the military. So as you see, it's a really important thing that every Korean male is expected to do, even the celebrities. And if a celebrity tries to dodge their mandatory conscription, they have some really awful consequences. So there's a few examples from way back in the day of a few celebrities that either tried to have their teeth pulled so they wouldn't have to go, or another celebrity who ran away to America and became a naturalized American citizen so he wouldn't have to go. Both of these examples ended up with the guys basically having their careers ruined. The one who became a naturalized American citizen, he actually has never been able to return to Korea because he was considered a deserter by the government. So it's such a big deal. And I think despite the fact that the BTS guys are really huge, and some people may argue they deserve an exemption, I don't think they're going to want to touch this issue. And I think they're going to want to just get it over with and out of the way. Now, the one good news for armies is that the Korean government, in recent years, reduced the military service. I think it was a little around 2 years, and now it's only about a year and change, a year and 6 months or so, give or take. So the service time has been reduced, which is great news for armies. And one thing I will stress is that when the first member Jin goes, it's not the end of the world, because you're going to see now the fact, now that they're on hiatus, a lot of these guys are going to be able to do their own solo activities. So a silver lining here is that we could see guys like V appear in more dramas, expand his acting career. Guys like RM release solo mixtapes or appear in variety shows. There's a whole world of possibilities that open up for the members now that they're going on hiatus and now that they're facing this period of military service. And, it goes by very quickly. A lot of K-pop groups in the previous generation have done their service. They've come back. They've been able to reconnect with their fans, and many of them have gone on with their careers and done amazing things in their pursuits. So if I'm an ARMY, I wouldn't worry too much because, again, the service time is reduced. And these guys are so popular that I think by the time they come back, it's going to be such a big event that they could potentially be even more popular than they were now because they were gone for so long. And when, people ask about military exemption and other examples, well, there have been a few examples of guys, public figures getting out of the service, but they were in a bit of a different profession. So the most notable example I can think of right now is professional soccer player Son Heung-min, who plays over in the EPL for Tottenham Hotspur, okay? He's considered practically, I think, the greatest Asian footballer of all time. And there was a time a few years ago when people were worried that he was also going to have to serve in the military. But what he did was he earned a gold medal at the 2018 Asian Games with the national team, which exempted him from serving in the military. All he had to do was he had to do a few weeks of basic training with some other troops in a remote location. Now, that case was actually an interesting case where I think the vast majority of the Korean public wanted him to not go to the military. It was a case where most people were rooting for him not to go because we felt like this is such an icon of Korean football that it'd be a waste if he spent 2 of his prime years toiling with the military and not out there in Europe playing against the best competition. But shoving aside athletes who are given exemptions for winning either trophies or gold medals at international competitions, we don't often see artists, right? Musicians like BTS get exemptions because at the end of the day, art is a little more subjective than sports, right? You have Grammys and some awards, but art is a lot more subjective than sports where you can actually win a trophy at the end of the day and be crowned a champion. Some people don't have different tastes in music. They may consider some musicians better than others, some overrated, underrated. I'm not saying that's what I think of BTS, but I'm just saying there's not really as big a public consensus on these artists, which is why some people are saying, okay, it's a bit of a slippery slope if we give BTS an exemption, because even though they're awesome and they're like 1 in a million, we could potentially have another idol group or a singer or performer or actor, whatever, come in the next few years and say, oh, I also want an exemption. And if they're not as big as BTS or not as popular, there could be a really nasty debate about, who's more talented, who deserves not to go to the military, and that just the whole slippery slope that a lot of people don't seem to be willing to go down. And I think it's also another reason why the BTS guys themselves have said, essentially, when the time comes, we're going to be ready to serve our country. And again, like I said, it's not something that's going to destroy their careers. They're so talented, so popular that they'll come back stronger than ever. It's just something that I think fans need to understand, the dynamics of how the military service works in this country and why it's so important, and why I don't think the boys are going to want to dodge it, and I don't think they're even going to get the chance to, because there won't be any legislation passing in the National Assembly anytime soon. All right, guys, so that's the end of the video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. I appreciate all your support, all your positive and negative feedback. And, don't forget to leave a comment if you want to see me talk about another topic or produce some other things for this channel. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.